You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. I am joined by Payton Carroll and Jake Gaylord on this episode. What's going on, everybody? Now, what I was laughing about beforehand was I saw Payton's background and it looks so like nice and like a log cabin. And it reminded me of those TikToks where people called him Prison Pate at his old house, where he just had like the cell. It looked like a cell. He had a bed behind him and a white wall. And they were like, is Payton in jail? That's what people used to ask.
Dude, I lived in the room was like 8 foot by 8 foot. And I couldn't even like scoot my chair out without hitting my bed. And it was a twin bed. And people were like, where's your sheets? I'm like, it's not the bed I sleep in, dude. Chill out.
Yeah, sometimes you'd have clothes on there.
Yeah,
you were in prison because you were still with your ex-wife. So I mean,
yeah, go ahead and clip that.
Moving on.
I'm sorry. We can edit that out, but I just
no, keep it, dude. That's funny. All the viewers will think that's pretty good.
Yeah, it just reminded me of Prison Pate. Your background is upgraded over the years. So me and Pate just came off of I'd say eventful is probably an understatement. A couple of days down hunting in Oklahoma. So what we're going to do on this episode is do a hunt talk. So we do a few different formats of episodes. We have guests on sometimes from time to time, but we really like doing these hunt talk episodes. I think this is the 22nd one that we've ever done. And it's really just what the conversation you'd have with your buddy the week after you get back from a hunt and you guys weren't together. That's exactly what this podcast episode style is. So, hey, give us a little bit of a background into how this trip kind of came about, because I've heard that you were maybe had to be convinced to come on this hunt, or strong-armed, or maybe there's another word for it, but did you not want to go hunting this last weekend? Did you have to be convinced to go and shoot at a deer?
It wasn't so much of the not wanting to hunt. It was I just got back from a work trip. And yeah, there was a lot of drinking / fighting / arguing / traveling hungover. So it was more of I just kind of want to stay home this weekend. I think we all run into those weekends where you're like, what do you want to do? And it's like, I don't want to do anything this weekend.
I don't sin like that, so I wouldn't understand, but I understand what you're saying.
I was tired and I knew that I only had, the biggest thing was it's a lot of traveling and I'm going to be lucky to get 2 hunts in. Was pretty much the thing is, we travel to our lease in a undefined location, and it's 8 hours of traveling just for me. Probably, I don't know how far it is for you, but I didn't know if I wanted.
And where are you located, Carol?
Do what?
Where are you located?
T-Town, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
So anywhere in the state your lease could be.
Yeah. I just figured that if you said the city where you're living in, then 8 hours round trip, people would be like, oh, I know where that is. Because it seems like the more stuff we put online, people was like, hey, I know where that's at based off this. And I don't know. That
And
just
my rebuttal is, well, come hunt with us, see if you can get it done.
We've had people identify places that we hunt based on like, oh, I know that road. That's a gravel road by a creek. Is that this? And I'm like, are you serious?
There's
And
some
it's-
like next level geo guessers. Have you ever seen that thing on that guy on TikTok that it's like, okay, this rock right here looks like Romania. So
Yes.
I want to put it right here, and he's within like 5 kilometers, whatever a kilometer is, which I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, people do that on hunting and they're fairly accurate a lot of the time. But in this case, Carol's at an undisclosed location. Anyways, you were saying?
Yeah, it was just it was one of those weekends where I didn't technically want to that weekend, but I knew it wouldn't take too much convincing to get me out there, because when you look at the date on your phone and you're like, oh, we're closing down, it's almost that time to wrap it up. So that had a big pushing point for me to go ahead and go.
Was it the wrapping up portion, or was it he was daylighting on the camera nonstop?
I mean, man, he's been daylighting on camera for a long time. I mean, shoot, I would say, other than the rut, if you take 2 weeks out of the rut, 95% of the days, altogether, probably on camera, 75% of the days in daylight. That's daylight. On camera, at least one time a day, probably 90% of the days.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So he was a homebody deer, some would say.
I mean, yeah. Christian had the lease before I did. I've been on it for 2 years, and I think Christian was on it for 2 years, 1 or 2 years before me, and you had him since day one.
Yeah. So Payton was going after a particular buck, and he's a buck we named the Refrigerator. Up until like this year, he'd never really had a name. And I'd had him since 2021. I think the summer of 2021, and he was always one of those, mid 120s, 8 points, and he's like a 130 framed 8 point, but his threes have always been short, and that's always how I've known it's him. Like he had these nubby threes. It's like he was basically a 6, and he just added like an inch nub on the ends to make him an 8. So he's always been like that. He was on the lease 2021, 2022, and then this year he was on it like white on rice. And yeah, he's a buck we've been going after, which Payton you had an encounter with him in the mid part of October, right?
I did. It was an encounter. There was just no way to capitalize. I pretty much just had to watch that hunt. That was one of those hunts where from the time I got in the stand till the time I had to get down to go to work, I had 10 deer in front of me of like, it doesn't matter what comes in. There's no way I get a shot off. So I just kind of put the camera up and was like, okay, unless just something insane happens, I will just be watching this hunt. So got some good video footage of him, running other deer off the feeder and kind of marking his territory. And there's a big reason we call him the Refrigerator, because we always said, oh my goodness, he looks like he's, 220, 230 pound deer. He's every bit of that. And we'll get into that later. He's not anymore. But anyways, yeah, he was one of those deer that what I was telling Christian is you could cut the rack off of them. You could cut the rack off every deer, just put their bodies out there. When he walked out, you're like, that's him. That's how big he is. He is big.
Well, he's almost like a different color than all the other deer. Like he's almost like a milk chocolate color. His coat's different. The video footage, so I
Are his antlers dark chocolate like that, or no?
They were actually kind of light the last time.
Yeah.
I think they're fairly light. No, he's just a real dark chocolate, and I finally got to look at the footage that Payton got in October of him, and I pulled it up on my computer, and his body. So the 6x7 was the biggest bodied deer I'd ever shot and I ever seen on that place, and he was 230 230 live weight, and the Refrigerator is bigger than that. Or he was.
So he's a meat hunter's like trophy buck, basically.
If you're going to the processor and you're like, hey, do this whole deer in ground meat, he is your dream of a deer, because they're going to be like, here's 100 pounds. And you're going to be like, there's no way. You're like, no, there is a way. That quarter weighed 50. Yeah. No, he's a meat hunter's dream. I mean, he's big framed too. He's just not a scorer,
Yeah.
Well, I've heard you guys talk about him like on previous podcasts and stuff. And of course, you guys show so many like good bucks that I'm like, heck, I'd shoot that one. But obviously, you guys have a lot more bigger deer down there. But what what made him not be on the hit list? I know, Carol, you said you might have got a crack at him, but there's too many deer in the way. Like, but he was also that deer that you said was that was on the camera at least 90% of the time and daylighting at least 3/4 of those times. So what made him, I guess, get the pass rather than the others?
Yeah, at the time, I think we talked about it last podcast, is we didn't have the rut that we thought we would. The rut is kind of what kept me from shooting him, because on our lease we kind of have a special agreement where we're only allowed one deer per person. So it's kind of, hey, pick and choose of, do I want to take him and possibly 150-inch, 5.5-year-old 10-point come out, even an 8-point, because it's possible in there. So it's just kind of, do I want to shoot 115, 120-inch deer? We don't know what he'll score. It's one of those that if he went 127, I'd be like, oh, cool. If he went 115, it's like, oh, all right, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the rut was kind of the hope of, what can we bring in? What will we see? And then after that rut, kind of disappointed. I was pretty disappointed in the rut there. Now, that's with the cameras. I didn't get to hunt the rut very much. But you don't get the whole picture. There could be 20 other deer running behind the camera, not stopping at the feeder. So as far as picture wise during the rut, now I say that we had a lot of good deer during the rut. 80% of them were broke. 80%.
So you guys didn't have like just an absolute swamp donkey come through. Obviously, you had Mr. Next Year in there, which if you're a previous listener to the podcast, then I'm sure you've heard of the deer named Mr. Next Year. Y'all didn't have like any of those giant caliber deer come through in November, because in years past, Christian, you said that you haven't really had cameras out there past like the beginning of November. And so this was basically the first full season where you're kind of taking inventory on everything that's moving through this property. So is that kind of what you expected out of the trail cam movement, or were you expecting maybe a little bit more?
So there wasn't, I wouldn't say there's not any. Christian's deer that he ended up harvesting came in. He was more pre-rut. I want to say, what day did you shoot him on? I don't remember.
The 30th of October.
Okay, yeah, he was a little more pre-rut.
That was our best weather we got all season.
Yeah, that was
still to this day. Yeah.
That was pre-rut. It's also tough to tell, what we expected from seeing what we saw in October and, before season. It was like, oh man, during rut, we're going to get a bunch of new big deer. But it's also hard to tell because, like I said, I'm not exaggerating. 80% of our deer were broke. I mean, we had 2 deer that, hey, these could be 150s, but we don't know. They're missing. What did they grow on this side? We don't know, because if it's identical, he would be 150.
So do you think, since you're seeing all those deer with like busted up racks and stuff, do you guys try to rattle in there any? Because normally in a normal situation, like for me, I always try to steer away from rattling, especially in high pressured places. But your area seems to be unique where pressure is somewhat limited, and so therefore, like, you could probably get away with the rattling. And then that next clue, seeing all those busted racks, like, did you guys even try any of that this year?
I didn't, because I never really had a time where I'm like, I'm desperate. I've got to throw a Hail Mary. I've never had sitting out there where I'm like, man, I'm not seeing anything at all. I will say pre-rut, what I was telling Christian a few weeks ago is I was hearing fighting, I think like around October 30th, somewhere around there, maybe a week before, I watched a deer chase a doe off hard. I heard, I sat there for a full week and almost every single day watch bucks do scrapes, watch bucks fight, or heard fighting and all that. So they're very active in there. So maybe I made a mistake by not rattling. I don't know. But
how much louder was the fight than you thought a deer fight would be?
It's vicious. It's very, very vicious, but I've heard deer fighting before. So speaking of the rattling, I've been on public land and hear some people rattle, and I'm like, you have never heard a deer fight. I actually have your old sticks, Christian. I will literally grab those sticks, and they're broke now, but I will slam them against the tree. I will slam them as hard as I can against the tree, and then I'll rattle them. And then I've seen people actually have string on their rattling horns. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where they'll bump them down in the leaves and stuff, or hit tree limbs with them and all that. But
yeah, Josh Bomar's great grandpa
Invented rattling.
Yeah, he actually invented that technique. So
Yeah,
it's kind of funny you mentioned it.
You might have heard of it, rattling.
Yeah, but rattling, it's awesome for people that actually haven't heard a deer fighting. It's not what you think. It's not the. It's like, no, take two 2x4s and hit them as hard as you can. That's the first initial hit.
Well, that's kind of what I feel like people kind of miss out on too, because before we talked to like Bronson Strickland and all those gurus, it's like the image that the outdoor television tried to give you was paint a picture for the deer, like they're just like humans basically. And so I experienced that this year on our rutcation when we were down there hunting on public. There was a guy that couldn't be no more than 200 yards from me. I actually know he wasn't no more than 200 yards from me because the day before I walked past his stand. And so I set up where I bumped that deer, and then I don't know, 30 minutes after daylight, you hear burr, 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 and then 5 seconds later, ching ching, ching 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 ching, and it was nice and clean, just like just your typical, just
Uniform.
Exactly, rubbing the antlers together, and then he like burr, burr, and then I was done. But he did that like every 30 minutes trying to paint a picture. Now I've never heard like what you've heard, like them really getting down to the nitty gritty, but I've seen it on YouTube, and so yeah, it wasn't the same.
It doesn't matter how good or how hard you can't imitate how like they're fighting, like it's almost like a fight to the death, and you're up there just like hitting it. Like even when I hit it against a tree, I'm like, that's as good as I can get.
How long did that fighting last that you heard?
Man, actual fighting, it's only a few seconds, I would say, like 10, 15 seconds. It'd stop and it would bam, go back at it. Like they were deer for sure fighting. Did I watch them? No. 1 minute after, I had 2 bucks that were cut up come running in, gasping for breath, and then one chased the doe off. So, and also the cool thing about us is, hey, there's nobody hunting, as the crow flies, probably 3/4 of a mile, but that's best case scenario. So no one's around to even hear that fighting. It's also in the oxbow where I'm like, well, that's on us. So somebody's in there doing it, then they're trespassing.
I've learned why people cut the eye guards off their rattling antlers, because if you try to hit them hard, you can't do it. Like I've seen them get hit together so hard that sparks like you're like quincing your eyes because you think like antler's gonna break and come off. And when you hold antler, like dense bone like that, you realize how much force it takes to break a point off. That is insane force.
That's last time I was hunting on family land, I took my rattling set and broke the rattling set that I had, both horns, because I was hitting them so hard, but I had 2 bucks come in doing it. So it's awesome. The prime time example that I have was in Kansas. When we hunted Kansas, I felt so complete because I got there, I was running late. I was like, I'm just going to throw a rattle up. It's the last day. Why not? And that deer came running in 5 minutes after running in. And I was like, I was not ready for this. So
did you call him in with my rattle bag?
Yeah, I did.
I've been wondering where that was like all season. I keep checking boxes. I'm like, God, where did I put that?
Yeah, well, I guarantee all the wood pieces are broken there. Cause like I said, I'll grab the string and hit it up against the tree for that first initial hit sometimes. Well,
you owe me an $8 Primos rattle bag. The refrigerator, I wanted to talk about, like the reason he didn't get shot in 21 was the first sit in there. I shot a buck, that funky buck, never saw the refrigerator. Like I never hunted in there more than one day that year. So he was in there all November, never saw him, never hunted in there. And then the next year, Payton and I had a really good success, an opening day buck, and then like a buck on the 7th. So we weren't in there the full year after that either. So he just kept getting like
fed.
Fed. Yeah. You can tell he's fed. He kept getting the quote unquote pass, not by us, but we weren't in there to hunt him. And that's like kind of his core area. So he just, by happenstance, I'd never seen him on the hoof. And so when Payton saw him in October, that was the first time he'd ever seen him. And I told Payton, because when you're on a lease with someone, so I'm on a lease with Drew, then I'm on a lease with Payton. Like it's kind of this like eloquent dance of like, would you shoot this buck? And then you kind of gauge your opinion on certain bucks, like based on if the other person would shoot it. Mm-hmm. And so Payton was like, would you shoot this buck? And so at the time I was getting ready for that recurve hunt. And I said, if he walks by me with a recurve, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to penetrate him because he's so big. I was like, but I will stick him as deeply as an arrow will allow. And I'm glad I didn't see him because I would have stuck him as deep as the arrow would have allowed. Like, he is a big swamp donkey, mature buck. And I was talking to Jake about that. And in an area where bucks like kind of peak out, like not all of them, but most of them, that the meat of that bell curve is, peaking around 150. You have to find like other reasons to shoot a buck just besides the inches. And he is
I mean,
a buck,
if it gives me 150 reasons to shoot him, I'm not going to pass him. If that's what you're asking.
100%. But what I'm saying is most of them never get there to
Mhm.
that. So you have to find other characteristics and other things that you like about a deer besides just, is he a 150 score? Or, most deer are never going to get over 140, like the 120s to 130 range. Like that's the majority of them.
So
in
what's
there.
your like extra characteristic that would like maturity, Carol?
Maturity, body size, all that.
Yeah, I mean, maturity, and that'd really be the only other reason is why, maturity and why not.
Man, I don't know if I'm going to dig myself in a hole because I really haven't thought through the next couple words I'm going to say, but like would obviously antler characteristics, like if it's a funky buck, yes, like obviously, but what about framiness on a deer? Like I know we discussed like the presence of the deer and all that stuff, but like yes, that could be mixed with maturity levels because I mean if it's a 5.5-year-old deer and it doesn't score that well, but it basically Mr. Next Year. I mean not Mr. Next Year, the refrigerator that you're talking about. I think he's the perfect example of what I'm trying to describe here because I think you guys are downplaying him a little bit because whenever you guys were sending me some pictures of him, I'm not going to get too detailed on it because we're going to get to that. But from a downward angle, I was like, that's a big deer. That's a very big deer.
So
And just frame wise. And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, maturity level is nice, but what about those guys that, that are going to grind it out on public? And it's just like, okay, you don't know if he's 2.5 or he could be 7.5. Like you don't know, but I mean that characteristic of framiness, like I think I would shoot all day long, regardless of age.
If a 20-inch wide buck comes in and his tines are 2 inches long, I'm gonna be like, you did it. Wasn't me. Like that's just when a deer walks in, and framiness is almost something that trumps score. Like that big 8 that Carol was going after, that
Mhm.
big wide one that was, I say 20
Oh,
very
yeah.
lightly. I say 20 very lightly. I think this deer was 20 inches wide. And that buck was probably upper 130s. Not the biggest 8-point that has ever existed, but probably one of the bigger frames
I mean,
that
a
I've ever seen on an 8-point.
A 130s is massive in my book. But so just a little bit of a side note. It's going to be a little off topic, but let's say you're on public, or maybe it's December or January on your private piece. Now, this private piece, let's say you don't have any rules or whatever, and it's a deer that maybe the tallest tine is maybe 5 to 6 inches, but that thing has a spread of like 18 to 19 inches. Are you taking it?
On public?
Okay, I think public would be too easy of a cop out.
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say,
let's
like,
go.
I don't understand the
Let's go
hardness
with
of this question.
Let's go with your private piece. Obviously, there's bigger ones in the area, and there could be a bigger one, but if you get one that's 18, 19 inches wide, that's a very wide deer. And then it's like, oh no, the tallest time's only 6 inches. Well, what's the probability those times are going to just grow significantly? You know what I mean?
In my mind, they're growing the second I see them. I don't know. Like if a buck catches you off guard, like if a real nice framey 8-point, let's say 130-inch 8-point runs in, I'm like, get the bow. Like I'm just trying to I'm like, I'm not going, I think he's 132 instead of 138.5. Like, he's not meeting my goal of 140 inches. No, I'm going to be like,
shit, I missed.
Yeah. No, I'm going to freak out in that situation and be like, I'm happy with him. Why do you know you're happy with him? Because I got pumped up when I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a perfect example of that when that new 8-point came in. I don't think I got any video footage of him, but he was like, I think right on the line of 130, where I'm like, I'd shoot him. I can't, but I would shoot him.
Oh, why couldn't you shoot him?
He was the one that came in after fighting, and then I had 10 deer around me. that was that one where I called him. I'm like, dude, I was going to shoot him. He gave me a perfect shot. He was like 15 yards, but I legitimately had 10 deer around me, and I would scare every single one of them off.
That doesn't make any sense though, because if he's at 15 yards, like you could just pick up your crossbow, like you had in your lap, and just shoot. What's hard about that?
Point and shoot, baby.
It's
Easier than
awesome.
probably taking a piss. You know what I mean? Like you just point and shoot.
It's like riding a bike, Carol. Right? Let me show you right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, off topic. I literally had a shower thought literally today of if I had a crossbow and hunted with a crossbow for the last 3 or 4 years, I would have a stacked house.
We've talked about that. Just myself, I would have 2. Christian would just off public probably have 2 as well. And then you're 7 in 2020, and then obviously you'd have what's his name, Paddles, and then
no. So here's the thing. Here's what I thought about. There's one deer in my life. There's one deer in my life that I would not get if I would have had a crossbow, and that is Paddles. I wouldn't have killed him if I had a crossbow because I would have taken that same shot. I would have taken that same shot. Now maybe I would have probably got more penetration. Maybe I would have got it out that front left shoulder, right? But I would have done the same.
I'm pretty sure they got X-ray vision on those scopes now, where you can like literally see the heart pump, and you're just like, all right, in there.
That was the one deer in my life where I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't, even if I had a crossbow, been able to pull that off.
I mean, I think you would have, just because like you hit it in the butt, and that thing probably would have blew through the neck. So
it's like
a cross gun, baby,
on a controller, and just settles back in.
Could have.
No. Yeah. So the fridge, that dude, we hadn't seen the refrigerator in probably, it'd been a couple weeks at least, maybe longer than that. There was a big block where we didn't see him, and we assumed like, okay, yeah, he's big and mature. He probably got away and got shot. And then he showed up last Monday. So a little over a week from now. And I told Carol, so I was trying to convince Carol to come to the lease to shoot does. And I'm like, I probably wouldn't make the drive myself to shoot does. So I understand if you don't want to come to shoot does. And like the day we have that conversation, the refrigerator shows up, and I'm like, oh, nice, he's back. And then that evening he shows up, and I'm like, sweet, like this is good ammunition. I'll definitely be able to entice Carol. And then it's like morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening. He did that like 6-7 days in a row. But one thing we noticed about him when he showed up this last time was the dude has a hematoma, like a balloon in his stomach. And I've sent that to several people. They think it's a hernia.
So what you said, that deer's broke as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He's broke his brow tine and the end of his main beam.
So
really like a 5-point at this point, I think. I don't know what he is.
Do you think he could have got stabbed while he was fighting, and it's just like a puncture wound or something?
That would be my guess.
Swelled up.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Or shot. Like that's another great, good. Like,
yeah,
shot multiple times now. So I mean, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I really think that either a shot or a stab, one of the two. But when I say it's a basketball, it's legitimately like looks like a small watermelon, and I think it's gotten bigger too. It looks like he's like cut open and he's just hanging half of his guts right there, and it's just like filled up into a big.
I thought it was on his shoulder.
No, it's on his back, in between his. It's on his
under
stomach.
His belly now. It's so droopy down that it's hanging out from the bottom of his belly.
So
looks like he's pregnant. It literally looks like he's pregnant with the fawn inside.
So it actually could be his guts.
It could be.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that sucks.
So that was even another reason he shrunk up a little bit in the body. I would say more than a little bit. So I was like, oh, he shrunk 30%. And then you, Jake, were like, no, he's still got a pretty big body. And then I watched Carol's footage from October, and I was like, oh, no, he shrunk a lot. Like a lot.
I mean, to be fair, a small-bodied deer down there is probably bigger than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he was big. It was crazy to see how big of a body. When I first saw him in October, with how big his body was on those, like his legs looked like pencils with how big his body was.
When you say refrigerator, he literally looks like somebody took a refrigerator and put it on like 4 little stands and like laid it on its side.
So basically his legs look like just an oversized corgi. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
I've been using the new Exodus Rival cell camera for the last couple months, and I have found a beautiful mainframe 8-point with tons of stickers to go after this fall.
Ooh.
One thing I do appreciate about Exodus trail cameras is all of the cameras share the same data plan, so you only pay for what you need. A lot of cell cam companies charge you for HD pictures. I've seen prices of $5 for 50 HD pics. Exodus is going to give you unlimited HD pictures right to your phone, which is awesome when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's 100 degrees and you just want to binge a bunch of trail cam photos.
If you're looking for a solid cell camera with great performance and a 5-year no BS warranty, go check them out. So as we all know, hunting gear is something people can make way too complicated. Arrows can be the exact same way. Instead of going down all those rabbit holes trying to sift through the endless information that's online and you're not really sure if it's right or wrong, Exodus makes it simple to get the right arrow for your exact setup.
So go online to the Exodus Arrow Builder. It takes less than a minute. You're going to enter your draw weight, your draw length, and how heavy of a point you're shooting. And it's going to be that simple. Let the guys at Exodus take care of the rest.
So if you're interested in Exodus Rival cell cameras or a new set of their MMT arrows, just go to exodusoutdoorgear.com and use code HA15 for 15% off anything on their website.
Once again, that is exodusoutdoorgear.com. Use code HA15 at checkout for 15% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. All right, so I got this pulled up.
Is this him in October?
This is October 16th.
Let's say there still looks to be foliage on the trees.
So which one's him?
I would say the back one.
You would say correctly. That's a good example because there's probably a 3-year-old standing next to him. Look at the fat hanging off the.
I don't
his
think.
neck.
I think his rack's a little bit bigger than you guys think. I think he has such a big body that it just dwarfs his rack a little bit. Yeah. Damn, you got 3 good bucks in one little clip.
Oh, there's another one to the side.
See that?
Yeah.
Look at those. I think what needs to happen next year is you guys let me on this lease as well. So that way, just for podcast purposes. So whenever you guys say, "Hey, do you remember that $1?" I can be like, "Yeah, I remember," and not just act like I know which ones you're talking about.
That's a good idea. Look at that deer standing next to a 3-year-old.
You're right. His color and everything just completely different.
Do you see? It's like I don't know if that's what happens when they mature on the color, but look at the presence.
He's like, no.
Yeah, that one said piss off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the deer that came in with them the other day. Right there, those two.
They're obviously still buddies.
Yeah.
He's a good deer too.
Yeah, I wanted to shoot him so bad. I saw him almost every morning, and I'm like, man.
Deer are just so freaking beautiful. Like,
I'm moving the camera around because my muddy camera arm is at an angle and it's not tightened, so it just swivels down. So I'm literally having to hold the camera. And I'm like, well,
oof. I can tell this deer can tell too.
No, he's just smelling that poop incident from a while back.
Yeah,
look at him right there. Look at him. Back it up just a tad. Them little pencil legs holding that big body up.
Yeah. So there's a look at the refrigerator. So to say he's lost some body mass is I think that's an understatement. So, anyways, you went down there to hunt him, Carol. You got in when? Saturday evening?
Yeah, like 3:00, I think. Right on.
Yeah.
3:00.
Well, while you were doing that, I took my neighbors hunting here on some Texas Public. Took them on. Hell, I don't even want to say how many acres this place was because it's like one of the only places you can deer hunt. So I took them on a multi-thousand acre place, and
3,000.
Yeah, there were 16 people hunting this place, and I slept in the parking lot the night before, like just because hotels are $90 and that's whack. So I slept in the parking lot the night before in the bed of my truck, and I was like, "Man, this isn't bad." Nobody.
Did they do the same? Did you and your neighbors just kind of cuddle?
They got a hotel room.
Oh,
it was my neighbor and his son, and they like at 5:30 and the first truck shows up. I'm like, dang, okay, there's someone else in here. And this is not a very big place. So like one other person can mess you up. So we kind of talked, and it was these two brothers, and they were like, yeah, like we saw a guy on our cell cam the other day dragging a doe out. I was like, okay, that's good to know. There's at least deer here. And they went in there and hunted. And by the time I picked my neighbor up at the front of the gate, there was like 7 other trucks where we were hunting, and a lot of them had multiple people. Yeah. One guy ended up driving. We sit down 800 yards in there. A guy ended up driving his truck down the fence line 25 yards from us, like 1,000 yards past where you can drive in the parking lot. So I remembered why I don't hunt Texas public land. Anyways, I stopped doing that, and I met Carol up there Saturday.
You're a good hunter, because I would have shot his tires.
You think so?
Probably would have ducked me though.
Didn't make me.
Yeah. So you went up Saturday. I know you weren't planning on having very many sits, obviously, because when you go up there on a Saturday, you're pretty
limited. Yeah, no,
sits.
I was firm. I had to get back Sunday evening. So I knew I've got, if I would have went down, Sunday morning, it would have been I have Sunday morning. I had Saturday evening and Sunday morning, and I was just being firm no matter what happened. Hey, I have to leave midday Sunday.
So you got in the stand Saturday, and walk us through the series of events that happens Saturday.
I don't want to, but I guess I will.
Okay.
I get there Saturday at about 3. Like we talked about, I'm a refresher on the cell cam of what am I walking into. 10 minutes before I get there, there was a young buck in there. I'm like, I haven't seen that deer, I don't think, before then, but he looked like an okay deer to where he's not a shooter, but he looked okay. But he ended up leaving. He wasn't on camera for 10, 15 minutes. So I went ahead and walked in. And I wasn't there for 15, 20 minutes and had a few deer come in, nothing of size. We have one deer that's like an 8-point. He's a basket rack, but he is there every single day. Every day. I've never hunted there and not seen him. So he was there. Saw a few other deer. Didn't see any doe. I didn't see any doe at all, but I probably saw around 5 bucks before the refrigerator showed up.
Okay, so he walks in, and does he resemble anything of what you remember from October?
I knew, so I'm a firm. I knew I was shooting him. So my goal is to not sit there and look at him, because I will shake the tree. I will get so nervous.
I hear you, brother.
I'm a firm believer of shooter. Yes. All right. Grab your bow. What do we do? What do we do here? Go through all your steps. I don't sit there and acknowledge him I see him coming in. I saw him. So I'm like, all right, he's coming to the feeder, because he comes every single day. So I saw him, got the camera on him. I knew my very first initial thought is he doesn't look good. He's lost weight. He doesn't look 100%. So I get the camera on him, and I go through all my, checklist of wait till he's broadside, no matter what this time. Wait till he's broadside. He played a little games with me of he was behind a tree limb, because we really got to shave the tree down a little bit. We have a limb right there in front of the feeder where they kind of have to get right in the middle or on the left side of it to take a shot. So I had a minute or two where the nervousness started to kick in of my heart's pounding. I don't have the shakes yet, but I'm I can feel my heart pounding. But he finally gave me what I thought would have been the ideal shot. Took my time, wanted to go through pretty much everything. The one thing that I didn't really mind was his head was down when I went to shoot him. For me personally, my thought process is, hey, this deer, he's been in here for 3 years. He's eating. He's comfortable. It's 25 yards, so I should be good to go. So he gave me a perfect broadside shot. One thing that we talked about is I don't ever really aim low on a deer. I kind of go for that just honestly, since we switched our arrow setup, I'm going to shoot him in the shoulder. So what I'm going to do. Not really in the dead middle of the shoulder, but I'm not afraid to hug the shoulder is what I'm trying to say. I'm not shooting for the shoulder plate. Went ahead and drew back. And at this point, I've gotten to where I'm very comfortable with the bow in my hand. I shot a lot in the off season, so I'm not all over the place, I've got my sight on them, and my first initial thought is dead deer, because I'm comfortable. I'm in a safe place now, to where, a few years ago I'd be shaking, I'd be breathing hard. There's no telling. I'd pull the trigger and pray. Don't do that anymore. So I'm in a comfortable spot.
Wait, you guys quit doing that?
I'm like, I might be too comfortable. Like, as crappy as that sounds, I might be too comfortable with myself now, and that might be my problem.
You just wait, because a few years ago I was that exact same way, where it's like, oh, I don't get nervous or the shakes or anything until after I release the arrow, and then it like just comes flooding in. I used to be like that, and I don't know what changed. It was just like a flip of a switch. And then now it's like I see a good deer and I'm just like I'm having trouble like knocking my release on the D loop, just because I'm like I'm shaking so bad.
Yeah, no, I definitely get nervous, but I used to, on my shot, used to get up and just be like, I'm all over the place, dude, because I can't sit still and I'm shaking. But like I said, I'm a lot more comfortable. But anyways, go through all my checklists and have it right, on his shoulder, pretty much, and release the arrow. And first initial thought was, let's go. As soon as I pull that trigger, I'm like, I didn't pull it. I didn't do anything. Like, it felt good. Watch the arrow, not physically just sit there to watch my arrow, but saw where the arrow hit. Instantly thought, I shot him high. And I'm just like, how you just like sit there and you're like, how could that be? Like, what did I do wrong? Everything felt so good, because I don't sit there and watch, I'm watching the target, but at the same time, I'm not trying to shoot and then see where my arrow goes. I'm shoot, hits. All right, what happened? Saw that I shot him high, and I'm so confused at this point of like, I don't really ever shoot high. I might be at 25 yards, an inch to the left, an inch to the right, especially on a target, maybe an inch low because I'm getting tired and drop my bow, but I don't shoot high a lot. Hardly ever. So at that point, I'm flooded with emotions of, I don't think he's going to die, but we'll see. So this deer, he runs off and he stops, and I'm like, okay, let me go back a little bit. The arrow, I didn't get a complete pass through. Shish kebabbed him. Half the arrow was in one side, half the arrow was on the other. So that's what I did have going for me, is, okay, I have 2 holes, but unfortunately,
how high in the shoulder did you hit, you think?
I didn't hit the shoulder. It was 3-4 inches higher than the shoulder.
So it's
Perfect
3-4
left
inches
and
higher than the shoulder. You say perfect left and right. So I assume when you're talking about left and right, it's right in line with that V, you say?
Right up the front leg.
Yeah,
Okay.
right up the front.
And it just shish kebabbed. It didn't.
I don't. Yeah, don't.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, there's this little something called the void. Okay, and I'm not no genius, but let me tell you, I've been victim to it. Now, whether it's true or not, I mean, I don't know, but I don't know, man.
But I don't know what really happened as far as, hey, how did I not get a pass through? What happened? Now, I will say this: a pass through wouldn't have done anything for me there. I got what I could. I have 2 holes. It wasn't a good shot for that particular. The arrow broke off, I'm sure, very quickly after. But anyways, the deer ran. He stopped. He started to run again. Then he stopped. I'm like, all right, he's gonna go down here. And then he took off running again. So immediately in my head, I'm like, well, crap. Well, I think if I would hit him in the double, got lucky and hit him in the double longs, he's dead already.
Mm-hmm.
Watched him run off twice. I'm like, I did not double lung him. That is a fact. So I instantly made some phone calls. Call Christian, was like, dude, I just shot him high. I don't know. He was like, well, what happened? I'm like, I don't know how it's possible, because I wasn't in a panic. Everything felt good. The arrow, I thought, flew good, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. So I went back and I watched the footage, and the first thing I watched was, how did my arrow fly? I was like, well, it looked like it flew good, because that was my first question, is why did I not get a pass through? Because my first initial thought is, dude, I hit the spine. I was like, no, if I hit the spine, he wasn't running off.
Yeah.
He wasn't running off if I hit
You'd
the
be putting
spine.
another one in him, is what you would be doing.
Yeah. So I don't know how I didn't get a pass through. Then my next precaution was, okay, why did I shoot high? What happens? Like, I didn't notice the deer ducked. I didn't watch him duck. That's not what I'm watching. after I released that arrow. So I went back, and after we finally got home to watch the footage and get it back on the laptop, he, with his head down, it's not just a straight down duck. I don't know how to explain it. More of
it's almost like a roll.
Yeah, it's kind of a roll duck, and he ducks quite a bit after watching the footage because we can slow it down to see, okay, put the mouse of where it's going to impact to, where it did impact, or where it impacted to where it would have if he wouldn't have ducked. And I mean, I'm not kidding. What do you think, Kristen? Probably, every bit of, I would say 5 inches, 4 to 5 inches.
Yeah, at least.
So,
at least.
I think
at 25 yards, that's insane. I believe it, but that just made me think of.
Because some people are not gonna believe me when I'm like, he ducked, and I'm like, no one believes me when I say, hey, this deer ducked a lot, and I was like, how far? 25 yards. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no, you're not understanding. Like,
I believe it because after watching enough, like looking back on some footage and stuff, whether that be doe kills or whatever, just a snap of like the arrow coming through the air or whatever. And if you go frame by frame on the cameras we have, you'll see the arrow flying through the air. And on each frame, as that thing gets closer, I swear the deer just they just know. And it's just like, don't think so. Like, it's weird how they do it, but they do it. But that story you just said kind of reminded me of when Jared Hayes used to hunt with us down where we hunt on public. He had this big wide pencil horn deer that we had on camera come out in front of him, and he said that thing was like at 15 or 19 yards or something like that, and completely ducked his arrow and which kind of shish kebab on the back strap, but his wasn't like in line with the front shoulder. His was like center mass, but yeah, that's just crazy.
Well, you think about it from a science perspective, the speed of sound I think is 1,180 feet per second. Your bow, like the fastest compound bow on the market right now is like 350s. 360s.
Yeah, and you're not getting that. You're not even.
No, and that's a 300 something grain arrow. Yeah, so you're shooting 280. Whether you're shooting 350 feet per second or 280 feet per second, the deer, that's 3 times. The sound is going to get there 3 times faster than the arrow. So,
I wonder if there's like any study about the reaction time, because just stupid scrolling. I was looking on Facebook and it said that the reaction time of a snake bite versus like the cat's actual reaction time.
Yeah,
was like super, super quick. And I just wonder if there's a study done like that on like a deer.
I think Dr. Grant Woods did one on Growing Deer TV. I'm pretty sure he did one on YouTube because he was basically shooting as a person was like dropping a bag off of something and seeing the difference between where he was aiming and where it was hit. Like they timed it. I think they pulled the bow back on like a robot. Yeah. And they made them go together as the thing dropped, and they did because he's really, really smart. Obviously he's a doctor, and they calculated like how much a deer is dropping, how the rate at which they're dropping. I'm pretty sure it's a very interesting video, but it just makes sense. A rifle's going at 223 is going 3,000 feet per second. That's over 10 times faster than your bow. So think about how not only like your shots are super close, but the sound, you can see it in Carol's shot. You can see it in other shots. As the arrow enters the frame, it's like you can see the second they hear it, because as the arrow leaves your bow and enters the frame, it's do. And like Carol's buck had his head down, and I know there's some studies on when their head is down, they can throw it up and it helps pendulum their shoulders down quicker. Yeah. And it's just them trying to get out of there. It's them, So I feel like that head down combined with like late season, like I think they're just a little bit more jumpy.
They've been through it. Yeah.
They've been through it. They've heard gunshots. They probably, this deer might have already been shot once before. There's no way to tell. But yeah, it just makes sense with a bow. Like, and then you think about a recurve shooting 150, and you're like, how do you ever kill one with a recurve? Like,
I won't.
Yeah, it's
question solved.
But yeah, you got a lot of things working against you right there. And I don't think the difference between 280 and 300 is your problem. Like they're just that fast. You're talking milliseconds.
So you release the arrow, it hits high, you see it run off. You're not really confident in the shot, but what's going through your mind? Like, are you thinking maybe single lung just because you're shooting on a downward angle, and even though it's high, maybe you caught the top of that back lung?
Yeah. So I went through a lot of thought processes. First thing I always think is, well, I've seen deer go down over a lot worse of shots, and I've, kind of what Grady was saying is I've seen deer not go down over a lot better shots. So I'm like, anything can happen here. So obviously, I'm like, it could have nicked a lung. If I hit a single lung, he could die. I'm not saying that he is going to, but he could.
So I'm going to stop you right there. What's your guys' take on a single lung hit? Because I mean, obviously, I know none of us are like doctorates or anything like that. Like our highest education is Payton, and he has a master's, and Lord help us. But I remember on a podcast we did with the Ranch Fairy, he was talking about those high lung hits, how a high single lung hit, the deer can actually live through it, because he was explaining that it wasn't like a balloon where if you just nick it, the whole thing pops and collapses on itself. So, with that being said, like obviously I take what Ranch Fairy says like pretty literal, but do you guys kind of agree with that or no?
Single lung, I don't know. I don't study deer. I would have no idea. I would have no idea.
That's my answer to any question about the woods. I don't study deer, bro.
Yeah, dude, I don't know, but it would make sense of like, I used to know a guy that we used to go to all the OU football games, and he only had one lung of, hey, trust me, if a human can survive with one lung, a deer can. That's how I look at it. So,
well, he only had one lung.
He only had one lung. We used to go and play catch and stuff, and he had to sit down after running for like 10 seconds because he only had one lung and he couldn't catch his breath. It was horrible.
According to Facebook, people can't live without one lung, because there was one guy who's like, if you shoot him in the lungs, they effing die, period. And I looked at his profile picture. Let's just say he didn't look like a biologist.
Yeah. Like John Joe. Yeah. One friend.
A picture of his truck as his profile picture. Yeah. It's like an 87 like shitbox Chevy or whatever it is. You're like, okay, dude, calm down.
My favorite is when people comment and you can't decipher what they're saying because it's not English. Like it's like, yeah, right. You don't
what's the punctuation?
They just ramble and they use like every letter is wrong, and you're like, okay, I know that was an insult, but I don't know what you said like at all. It's kind of worse because you need like a translator. You're like, did he get me?
Those piss me off more just because it's like now I have to take the time to try to decipher these hieroglyphics, and then like it's just a time thing. It's like I gave this way too much thought.
Well, when he posted, he's like, I got him. Good. You know what I mean?
Like that video,
freaking lawn chair in his living room, like got him with a beer in his hand, Bud Light probably.
Again, dumb scrolling, but have you all seen that video of that guy? And he's like, I'm a professional crap talker, but for like online forums, and he says nothing makes my day better than knowing I ruined someone else's. And it's him with like 3 laptops set up, and he's on like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and he just like crap talking everybody.
That's awesome. Yo, the people that comment on ours are not those kind of people, because they're not good at it.
I can name a few usernames like out of the top of my memory that I'm just like, F that guy.
Yeah, the Reaper.
Yeah.
No, Ranch Fairy is a respiratory therapist, so kind of knows a thing or two about human anatomy in the lungs. And I've actually watched other videos of doctors breaking down the deer anatomy. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a biologist, but I know there's different lobes of the lungs. And so it's not just like a balloon where you poke a pin-sized hole in it and it goes because if that was the case, any deer getting touched, the lungs touched, would be like, oh, and just fall over and die. And that's just not how it works. So we put a clip out recently, and it was Ranch Fairy talking about the void, and he was basically saying he just thinks that high lung shot, especially a single lung, is not that devastating. Like that's just something they can kind of absorb because you only hit one lobe. It's not like it just deflates them like a balloon.
How helpless the more we do the podcast and like talk to people like that, it's the more helpless I feel whenever I'm like having a crappy season, and I'm like, not only am I not seeing a deer, but even if I do see a deer and hit it in the lung, finding the deer and like running trail cameras and doing all this other crap is like, it is the majority of it, but still yet it's like that small, 30-second window of you having the encounter and then you letting off shot off, like it's so demoralizing knowing that like you could do all that just for a non-lethal hit on a deer. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes me feel like I'm gonna have to be perfect to kill this thing.
It feels like
I'm
that
gonna have
sometimes.
to hit it perfectly. Like there's sometimes you hit them and you hit them in the. I mean, I don't think I've ever hit one on the back hip, but you see people hit them on the back hip and they run over, and just fall over, and they just die. And there's people you see smoke them, pass through, and they're like, "No, that deer's alive." You're like, "What?" So I don't know. That's one of the reasons that I run a heavier arrow is because I want to be able to push towards all those goodies in the front with no avail, because I know how hard it is to just kill one. It's not easy. A lot of them just wear it. They wear it proudly, just take an arrow and keep moving. They
Yeah.
really do. It's when you think about it that way of how tough they are. I mean, it's discouraging. But anywho,
All right, Carol, where were you in your story? So you got back and you were watching the shot back probably 200 times, I'd say.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. Of like, best case scenario. I finally paused it of the deer running away, and I was like, okay, exit doesn't look that bad. Actually, exit looks so I'm thinking, maybe I hit a single lung. I don't know. We'll just have to see. So my first thought is, where do we even start to look for this thing? Tomorrow morning makes the most sense. Call Christian, and he was like, dude, you know what you should do? You should get a thermal drone, see if this deer is still alive or not. Like, I don't know. I'll have
my
to,
bank account determined that was a lie.
yeah, it's kind of expensive, but I thought, well, looking back, especially with paddles, I'm like, I'm not making this same mistake again. I shot him. I'm spending $300 to get here and back in gas, so might as well see if I got this deer or not.
Mm-hmm. Let's say there's a new listener out there who's just now getting into hunting. What made you decide to leave that deer overnight? Because you shot him Saturday evening, and you said you were going to go look for him Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Why exactly did you do that? Like what? Obviously the shot, but what about the shot made you feel like, hey, I need to give it overnight. I need to give it a few extra hours before I go out trekking and looking for it.
Well, there's multiple factors. I mean, the main thing is it's cold enough so this deer's not going to ruin. This meat's not going to spoil. That's the big thing. If it's 80 degrees, it's like, we have a limited time, so we probably still wouldn't be ideal to go check, but it depends what your end goal is. It all depends what your end goal is. Meat not spoiling. Another thing is my confidence level was pretty low of, I don't know. So why would I? Why would you go out there and bump this deer? Especially it's dark, you can't shoot him. So if he's not dead, you really shot yourself in the foot. Really did. Yeah. So meat not spoiling, and I wasn't confident in the shot. So why push?
Yeah, going out and looking for a deer that you don't think is dead is pointless. And then in that situation, like single lung, you're talking at a minimum
6 hours,
probably 6 hours plus.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's midnight. And then by midnight, you're like, well, what's 6 a.m. if we're waiting until midnight?
Going to be dead then. He's going to be dead later.
And it was very, very cold. So we're like, screw it. So I twisted Carol's arm to get a thermal drone. Whatever. It was worth it. It was really cool to see it work. It was awesome to see it work.
It was. The guy was super nice. I don't remember his company name. We'll give a shout out to John. I think it was at Heat Seekers, I think. So if you want to give him a call, he was very nice. And he knew what he was doing. That was the main thing. My main question is, hey, dude, you can come out here and not know what the heck you were doing for 6 hours? Because we'll just go look in the morning if so. Save my time. But no, he was confident. He knew what he was doing. And we found this deer in, 10 minutes of flying? Didn't even waste but half a battery.
It was crazy because he goes up and he's not using like the thermal profile in the traditional sense, like where it's red. He's using white and black. So like the ground looks white and then everything else that's like shows black. Yeah. And so he goes up and he's like, well, he asked Carol some questions like, where did he go? Where did you shoot him? What direction did he run? Whatever. And he does like one pass and he's like, there's a deer right there. And we thought the lease would be like lit up with deer. Like there's a deer like every 5 feet. There was like one deer on the whole property. And we're like, oh, frig. But he goes up, he's like, all right, here's one right here. And he like zooms in, lights him up, and we're like, that's a big buck. And I think Carol said, oh, I don't think that's him. And I was like, if it's not, that's a big one. You need to get in there tomorrow morning. Because it was a big one. And he's like, well, let me try to get another angle. Skirts around the other side and lights him up again. And we're like, that's him.
And he looked like, I'm hurt, but I'm not going to die. You know, I instantly knew. I was like, yeah, he's not going to die. Game plan was, all right, tomorrow morning, we're going to get out there and I'm going to try to get another arrow in him. That's really my only shot. My best case scenario is I walk up on him and he had died. But if not, then try to get another arrow in him. So,
but you could see on the drone though, like it was insane. You could see like a gash, like 2 inches. Like the hole was big in him, and he was just sitting there like licking the hole. And
I
I'm
think
like,
it's from that arrow just still in him, just messing him up. I think him trying to get it out, probably running through stuff, you know, and all that. That arrow may have really.
Didn't you say that that like he was just sitting there licking the wound, but his legs were like sprawled out, where it seemed like he couldn't really keep control of his legs? One of you guys were telling me that, and like, because after seeing that the actual footage of the shot, I was like, I don't know, you know, it ain't ideal, but you know, you might have got something good, like who knows. But then one of you guys called me and said that the thing was just constantly licking his wound, and then the legs were kind of, I mean, I haven't seen very many deer bed down, but the ones I have seen, you know, they're folded legs and all that stuff.
He looked uncomfortable.
Y'all said this one was like spread out, and I was like, well, you know, seems like he ain't doing too good.
But he didn't have his head down, like labored. He wasn't breathing hard. What made you think like, oh, this deer's hurt is like there's a freaking giant gash in both sides of him, and I can see both. And like when he's like kind of sat down, even where you could see both sides, you see a hole right here, big hole over here, and you're just like, I don't know. It looks devastating, but he was just like, the holes look great, but the deer's behavior. And the drone guy said this too. He said when they're not breathing super hard, like, you know, like labored, and when their head's still up like that, he's like, it's not really a good sign, but you know, every deer's different. You might walk in there and it might be stone cold in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it. We went in there the next morning. I was like, all right, get your camera. This might be awesome. So Christian had a camera. Was like, hey, game plan, we're going to get downwind of them. It is windier than Tots every single day there. Every single day it is 20-mile-an-hour wind, except the day that we have to go in there and try to sneak up on this deer. Every day it is just so windy. That morning, 3-mile-an-hour winds. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have to try it. Like, it doesn't look like he's going to die. So we got to try to get another arrow. And, you know, regardless, because I'm limited on time here. So let's give it our best effort. Let's do what we can. So we get out there, you know, shooting light of, all right, let's get out there 2 minutes early, get within 100 yards or around 100 yards. And then once that minute hits, if I can shoot, let's try to do what we can to sneak up on him. Of course, our property is 8-foot high grass. And if you take one step, I think you can hear it from a mile away. There's some parts it's not. There's some parts that are. So we took that gamble of, well, let's just hope that this is not the part of the property that is going to do this. And sure enough, it was when we got up there to them. So we got within 50 yards. Issue is I didn't have a clear shot of kind of knew the general area of where he was going to be in, but I didn't have a clear shot at it. So we heard him get up. We heard the grass moving, and it was like, oh, he's right up here. We heard the grass moving. It is loud, then nothing. Okay, he went back down. He went back down. Yeah. Because normally you would hear him running or it'd get faint or like, okay, he's going away or something. It was loud and then just nothing. So had the bow in my hand, looking around, and we looked for we looked for 2 hours just around in that area. And we're like, hey, where could he have been? Or where is he at? I don't know. So finally, long story short, came to the conclusion the river was only 20 yards to the north of us. That would only make sense of why we heard that grass than nothing. I think he just hopped in the river and crossed the river. Top
when
Moon
we
or
were
Product River?
when we were walking down this oxbow to look, so like there's this oxbow on the property, it's very, very thick cover. And we're walking down it, and I immediately so we get like to the end of it, and I hear and I hear splashing. And I see close to 130-inch buck in the river. I'm like, "Put him in the river!" Like, come get him. And I'm like, he's in the river. And then I was like watching him. Like, and I watched this deer like struggle to swim. Like, it's like, like barely keeping its head above the water. And I'm like, it's him. And Peyton's like running through the brush. And then I'm like, oh no, he has big G3s. It's not him. And Peyton was like, I think that is him. And I was like, no, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I just saw a big 8-point. I was like, that's him. You know, it wasn't. It was like the other one had like 7.
I was like, 110. Right there somewhere.
Aim on the horizon.
Yeah. It was a really good buck though. And I was like, well,
goodness,
I can guarantee you if this buck was bedded in this oxbow, he would have left with that one. So
yeah. Oh yeah, because you put dadgum.
So, yeah, we looked for a while and didn't find him, and it was insane because I know he was in there. Like he was in there somewhere. I know he was.
When my family members are asking like, oh, you know, how hard you look. You're not understanding that I could step on this deer and not see him. Can literally step on this deer and not see him. This grass is so tall and so thick. It's like, I don't even know what type of grass it is. I wish I could tell you what grass it is so people would be like, oh, yeah, I understand.
Tall, loud grass is what it is.
That's
about all they're going to get from us.
Very noisy. Yeah. So we waited. We didn't see him. We left. And then, Carol, what happens literally the day after you shoot him?
That night.
That night?
Late, early morning next day, he was back on camera.
Like in the daylight?
So he wasn't at first, and then he left and came right back at like 8:30, 9 a.m. And then was there that evening, daylight, was there the next morning again in the morning, and then there again that evening. So 2 days, morning, night, morning, night. What I was telling Christian is the biggest thing, you know, and I'm pretty good about like, I get excited, but after I shoot, I'm like, all right, let's go back to the truck. Time for some Chick-fil-A. Let's find out what just happened. You know, because dude, I'm the world's worst. I can shoot a deer and you turn and put the mic in my face. What happened?
Wait a minute.
Know. I have no idea.
They have a Chick-fil-A over on those parts?
No.
Possibly. A magician never reveals his secrets, Jake.
I was about to say, because
we're up there where I hunt in Enid. They have a Chick-fil-A.
Right. So, I didn't say the name. I was just genuinely curious because I was like, "Dadgum!" Like,
there's not that many Chick-fil-A's in the state of Oklahoma.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. But anyways, I think the biggest thing that I had going for me, I say that and then contradicted by walking it out to try to find this deer, is he didn't know what happened. I didn't get down to push because some people are shooting and 30 minutes later, like, oh, let's go look for the arrow. Let's go look for the arrow. And then I walk up there 100 yards. It's like, oh, there's the deer. You know, just pushed him out again. Now it's time to back out. I always get down and get out of like, all right, no matter what, like, give it time. First of all, main thing is I'm hungry. I'm a fat boy. I need to eat, you know. Second of all, then we can go back and say, all right, what happened? But I think that helped out tremendously of just him not knowing. Now, the other pinpoint that was there with him, watch me say, mother, I shot him high, throwing my bow and stomping around, freaking camera up, FaceTime and calling people. He sit there and watched me the entire time. I'm just like, get out of here. I'll shoot you too.
You'll try to shoot him at that point.
No, I'll shoot him. I'll hit him, dude. That's my biggest thing. I tell Christian this all the time. I'm like, I'm not good enough to kill, but I'm not bad enough to ever miss.
I have that problem too. If I shoot, I'm going to hit him. It might be in the cheek, but
yeah, dude, I just have that problem where I'm like, I just don't miss.
Well, Carol's videos don't require any post-production. You know how Meteor comes in and they're like, we're in Idaho hunting a mule deer.
Voiceovers.
Carol does his voiceover while he hunts. Like he shoots and he's like, I hit him high. And he gets right down to his microphone. And like, he doesn't think that in his head. He commentates it. He's like, ooh, hit him high. Or then like, there's a video of him filming Mr. Next Year. And he goes, And Mr. Nature turns and looks at him, and Carol goes, "Oh, he winded me." And like the deer's like 35 yards away, and Carol's talking into his mic.
Oh, he went. I mean, he winded me for sure. Because I called it out. Don't forget the first part of the video. I'm like, he's going downwind. He's going downwind. He's going to win me. He's going to win me. He stops, throws his head up, and he's like, "Nah, I smell
shit."
Yeah,
Is that
some ultra
Chick-fil-A?
strong butt cheeks in there."
A piece of toilet paper floats through the wind and hits him.
Wraps up in the antlers. Be like, okay, that's Carol's buck. We know that.
Oh my god. God, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, we pushed him out. We couldn't find him. We bumped the deer. It was dark enough that it was just, I mean, the minute of shooting light of, okay, 7:03, let's go. To where he didn't know probably what we were, couldn't see us, probably heard some sound and was like, all right, I'm good enough to get out of here, so didn't know what we were, bumped him up, couldn't find him. And like I said, long story short, he had to have crossed the river. I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Or he was bedded down 10 yards away from us.
Oh, that's right. Because you said you got him back on camera that next day. Where I was going with that is, so did that kind of ruin you of only aiming like center mass on a deer? Like obviously you're trying to hug shoulder and stuff like that, but kind of like Christian says, he always tries to aim a little bit low, aim for the heart. If they duck, you'll hit, you'll hit lungs. If they stay still, you'll punch hard. Is that kind of making you want to do that now? Or are you still like, let's just play it safe and aim, center mass
really
of behind the shoulder?
It's not really center mass. It's still, where I aim, I'm like, okay, if he ducks a little bit, I would have been perfectly fine if he ducks a little bit. To what he ducked, yeah, I think I'll play my cards a little different. Here's my biggest thing, and I'm not going to get on this whole argument. What really kind of put me down in the dirt of I shoot a heavy arrow setup for that specific reason of I want to get 2 holes. I want to blow through that thing.
You did get 2 holes though.
I didn't blow through them though, because if I didn't blow, I don't know what I hit. Right?
You hit a whitetail?
Do you know how when we were at deer camp, I was having that issue too, because I shot a doe, because I've never really used fixed blade broadheads, or I have, but that was at the time where I didn't know anything about an arrow. I wasn't shooting the right spine of arrow or anything like that in my younger years of bow hunting. But when we were at deer camp this year, and we were using those VPAs, and I shot a little small doe, like probably literally just now lost its spots, but it came out there solo dolo at like 35 yards. And I was like, that's a mature doe, it looks like to me. And before it even got to the feeder, I was drawn back on it. Long story short, a smaller bodied doe, I still didn't get a pass through with my arrow, and it's like 585 grains. And
we shoot the same setup.
Right.
Same arrow length, same arrow, same broadheads.
It seems like it, but fast forward to that location, all I had to do is just turn my knock where that whatever you said, that little Sharpie on the MMT arrows that they made that aligned the spine or whatever.
So
it shot like a dart, and on that buck, it zipped right through a lot more goodies than it did on that doe. Granted, I found both, but one got a full pass through and ended up ricocheting into the oblivion, and the other one shish kebabbed. So was that kind of the issue? Did you make sure?
See, that was the first thing I looked at on the video. That was what I was saying earlier. Is how is my arrow flight? That was the first thing I said, and that was the first thing I looked at. Is what the heck? How is my arrow flight? Because when I had the same problem with my arrows, I have them all marked. I think had like numbers on. Hey, I like my broadhead to be flat when I shoot and spine up, obviously. So I mark, hey, this fletching should be here. Broadhead should be flat. I try to do the same thing on everything. When you were shooting yours, where we public, where you were shooting yours, we watched your arrow freaking do some crazy, do this as it was going through the air. That was the first thing I looked at, is because I told Christian, how's my arrow flight? Arrow flight, dart, fletching, spinning perfectly. I don't know why I didn't. That kind of rubbed me wrong of like, what if I would have hit him in the shoulder? He didn't die regardless. So if I hit him in the shoulder, maybe different stuff happens. Maybe he does die, but I'm like, I may have just hit him maybe in a single lung and mainly in the meat, and I didn't get a pass through. What if I would have hit bone? Like, what would it? I don't know. It's kind of unexplainable of, well, I don't know. Another thing too, what I was thinking about, in my shower thoughts is we don't shoot. I know a single bevel spins through a deer. You're not just shooting a flat, arrow. And it's not just going in at one angle, it's spinning as it goes through it. It doesn't cut a lot. Our broadheads don't do a big cut. That is my biggest thing that I worry about too now, of if I hit a shoulder, I'm in the best boat. If I hit a shoulder, I'm in the best case scenario, right? Got a heavy arrow, got a fixed blade. But now I'm a little worried of, I may want a bigger cutting diameter, so I might switch to a 3-blade or something like that. I'm sure VPA has some 3 blades. I think I remember looking at them. So I might switch to a 3-blade and try to go to something that has a little bigger of a cut.
What makes you think that having a bigger diameter cut would mean better blood trail?
Biggest thing is my deer in Kansas. I shot. Dude, I should not have killed that. I was in shambles. When that deer came in, shot way over his back, was like, I have my pin on 50 yards. What am I thinking? Was like, he's about 20. Stroll it down to 20, pulled back, and just sent one. Hit him just as high, maybe even higher than the deer that I shot. But I was shooting a broadhead that the cut is God knows how big, 2 inches on probably each side. So maybe that helped. But at the same time.
Did you find any blood?
Where he was lying.
That's kind of where I was going
exactly.
at.
Hey,
because
here's the thing. Where he was lying dead is where I found him.
Yeah, but also like I shot the same VPA and I didn't see an ounce of blood on my buck I shot this year. But but what I'm saying is, so go back to 2021. I was using the Grim Reaper Whitetail Specials. I shot a buck, complete double lung at like 25 yards. I didn't get any blood. Now, granted, I wasn't looking that hard just because I seen the deer fall, but there was no different scenarios. That they both ran 30, 40 yards. And again, I'm not saying I do that every time. I'm just saying these because these are the only 2 times I've ever seen like deer fall in my life. But I don't think you have enough proof to really say that, like, hey, this broadhead cuts smaller than this one, so therefore this one would have a better blood trail than this. I mean, in your mind, it seems like that's the right way to
Probably
take
a bitter
that.
taste. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you could aim at the same deer and shoot 100,000 times at that deer and just keep replaying it. And I bet you each time you're going to shoot that deer in a different spot. It's going to react different, this, that, and the other. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, the broadhead does have a impact on it, but whether that deer is going to bleed or not bleed, regardless of where you hit it, I think that's out of our hands in a way. And
no, I'm not saying the blood trail is the thing. Dude, I could have shot it with where I hit it, we didn't find any blood, no matter with what broadhead I shot it with, where I hit it. That's not the thing. Maybe I did hit a single lung, but I'm going to go something with a little better cutting diameter, because maybe I nicked it. And I'm not going to go off the guys that called in the dogs, or that we called for the dogs. When I shot paddles, they said, hey, we recover a lot of deer. A lot of people have switched these single bevel broadheads. If you hit a deer okay, the deer will die. They do a good job of killing a deer. If you don't see him go down, you are in some really big trouble.
So would you rather have one big hole, or would you rather have 2 smaller holes?
Man, it depends where you hit them.
Here's the thing. If you hit one with a good broadhead and get a pass through, you're going to find it. If you hit one with a bad broadhead and you don't get penetration, you will not find it. I don't care where you hit it. Doesn't matter if you hit it.
I mean, to each their own. I mean, if also, I agree with both sides a little bit, but from the outside looking in, I feel like if you feel more comfortable if you have more confidence in your setup with a bigger diameter cut, then I feel like you need to switch. But I'm just giving my perspective now, but like I would rather have 2 holes rather than 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think I talked to my brother after a little more, and I'm not saying the heavy arrow setup is not the way to go, because I'm probably not going to change anything, to be honest, because the biggest thing is I can't really knock on what I'm doing because Payton hasn't hit a freaking deer where he needed to hit him. Like, I can't knock it because I haven't hit a deer where I needed to hit it. But I'll say this: with what else I used to shoot last year, I hit 2 deer probably where I shouldn't hit it, and it worked out. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Like I said, I'm probably not going to steer away from the fixed blades and the VPAs. I'll probably go ahead and stick with them, but I'm going to see if they have a 3-blade or something. Maybe even go just. I'm sure they have a bigger cutting diameter for what we shoot too, because I think mine's just 1.125. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. I'm not going to change anything this year. My main focus is if I have a deer in front of me, just find a way to shoot them in the lungs or the heart. So
yeah, I don't know. It's a polarizing. I don't know why it's such a polarizing topic, because I don't really think it has to be. But like, I don't know. There's a lot of hate out there for heavy arrows, but I don't know if it's warranted or not.
I think it's warranted if you go to extreme. Like if you shoot an 800
like
grain broadhead, then like
800.
what are you doing? Like you have 3 pins and your sight is one of those wheel sights too. Like literally you got, that's it, because the pin gap and everything, you get what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I think it's just with anything. Like if you try to overkill something, then it'll be, overrated.
Yeah, I agree.
And my brother, I think, made the best point, after he's like, well, just shoot them where you need to. hit them where you need to and shoot them where you need to. A 585, is what I shoot compared to, I think that he shoots, I don't remember what he said that his total arrow weight was. But he was like, when I hit a deer, I hit him where I need to. And he's like, I don't ever get 2 holes, but when I have a 3-inch gash in the heart or a lung or 2 lungs, don't have to have 2 holes. So, but the heavy arrow is the safest route as far as if you hit the deer, it's the safest route, but a lot of things can happen.
That kind of sounds like the John Dudley and the Ranch Fairy discussion. You know what I mean?
Is,
like
it's a mirror of that discussion.
If you hit them where you're supposed to get hit, like, you don't need a pass through. And that's kind of what John Dudley was saying. And then the Ranch Fairy was like, yeah, but not everybody is a 100th percentile on shot accuracy. So that was John Dudley's take on it. But the Ranch Fairy was saying basically not everybody shoots. And then the Ranch Fairy was saying like not everybody shoots in the 100th percentile. And so, I mean, you got to kind of leave room for that leeway, I should say, like
Plan B arrow.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where I feel like we need that Plan B arrow. So I think that was the whole movement for the heavier setup.
Well, if you hit them in the lungs, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a 1/8 of an inch cut or an 18-inch cut. It doesn't matter. But it's when you don't do that, which is seemingly more and more. I mean, the deer also move. Like, there's not a one size fits all situation.
No, there is. It's called a 270.
Yeah, exactly. No, there was some comments on Facebook where it was like, you hit a deer high lung, they'd live, and he goes, well, I hit them on my 30-06 and they don't ever go nowhere. And I'm like, all right, buddy. Sounds good.
You're right. I know that, but we're talking about
I don't mean to bring the whole heavy arrow debate up. Like I said, it's just like, I was so dude, all year. I'm like, oh man, if I hit one, it's going to slide through like butter. I can shoot him out in the chest and send it out the butt if I need to.
I still think you can.
And I'm like, what just happened? It's made me fear a little bit of like, ugh.
What makes you think you didn't get a pass through? And Christian, feel free to jump in on this too if you know more about, because you've been shooting the fixed blade longer than Carol and I have. So yeah. Why do you think with that heavier arrow setup and that single bevel broadhead, why didn't Carol get that pass through?
I don't know. You should have. I mean, my expectation would be that you would, but the only thing that I can think is if you look at the shot with there's a frame that Carol took a picture of when the deer's running away, and you can see the entry of the arrow and you can see the exit of the arrow. And they look at they almost look like they're at 2 different angles. And I wonder if he hit some sort of bone and it deflected down, which kind of gave you an illusion of like you hit lower than you actually did. So
Ricochet off a rib, maybe.
like a rib or like the top of it just, I don't know. It almost looked like his arrow looked like it was doing really good in the flight. And then at the impact, it looks like I don't know if it shot down, hit some sort of bone. There's no way to tell. Hit a rib on the backside. I don't know. I will say it was odd. It's also a big body deer. That could be part of it too. But I would have expected a pass through in that situation. But didn't see one. So I don't know. Every shot's a little bit different too. I don't know.
And also, like I said, with that specific deer, if you ask me if it would have slid through like butter, would it have made a difference? It's like, no, because I mean, I got the whole, the only thing that didn't get to that deer is the fletching. He ran and broke the arrow off and had 2 holes in him regardless,
Well, when you get 2 holes in them though, if you could take 2, if the arrow's sticking out one side and the other side, you could break the arrow in half and pull it out and it's done its job at that point, right?
Yeah,
like the arrow
exactly.
is
And
through
I think
the
that's
animal.
what happened is the arrow, dude. And that may have been, one thing is that may have been the case is maybe it was up against his spine. And when he was running off, he broke that arrow.
And it was sitting at 2 different levels.
Yeah, it's sitting at 2 different levels and it just slid out, maybe. But I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know. There's so much variability in it though, because I've shot 6 deer with a single bevel this year, and 2 of them were like the nastiest blood show you've ever seen in your life. Like Ray Charles could have followed it. 2 of them I watched drop, so I didn't even look for blood show, but I don't think there was much of one. And then this last weekend, I shot a doe right through the shoulders, and she ran 50 and piled up. I never looked for blood because I was like, she's right there. I mean, I'm not going to look for blood. And then I shot another one, hit her high shoulder, and I don't know if I got a pass through or not. I know I dropped her. I want to say I did get a pass through, but I don't remember exactly.
So out of those 6, how many did you get a pass through on?
5, maybe 6. I don't remember what happened on that last doe. I don't know if I wanted to pass through or not. Because my arrow was laying there when I walked up to her, but I dropped her. So I don't know if like it went in her and it came out as she fell over, or it like went through her and was just laying there. I don't remember because I didn't film it. I didn't film that shot. So I don't know exact. In my mind, I can't remember because I remember I dropped her and I was like, let me get another arrow. I wasn't like, oh, where to hit her? She just dropped and I grabbed another arrow and was like, so, but the 5 for sure that I've got pass throughs on, if you hit him in that V and you shoot him like that, like you saw Payton on the 7x5, that cut on that deer was like an inch. Like you had to like kind of look for the hole. Like you had to pull back hair and look for the hole, but that deer ran 8 yards and fell over, So you're getting the blood. It's just, are you getting it externally or are you getting it?
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be with every broadhead too. I mean, when you're shooting razors at them and stuff, at the end of the day, you're shooting razor blades and metal at them. Like they're bleeding. Are you going to get it on the ground or on the inside? They're going to bleed with the field point. But
I'm to the point now with dogs and drones and stuff though, that I'm like, if I kill it, I don't give a frick. I'll find it. Like that's not the problem to me. Like finding it. We're like, oh, this deer's not going to bleed. We said that when you shot that buck. And then we're like, I wonder where he is. And 10 minutes later, we're like, oh, I know where he is. He's right there. Like right there. If you shoot a deer and kill it, you're going to find it.
It's probably good for your financial health to just make a good shot on a deer.
100%.
But there's
and
always
for them
ways.
to bleed. And for them to bleed.
Yeah.
Drones, I'll say that later season, drone over dog for anybody that are listening. It's a lot more depends. It depends.
What's
a lot more expensive? Might not be.
You don't have to be specific on it, but was it like a few hundred or like
I pay, since I mentioned them, I'm not going to tell people how much I paid because I mentioned who it was. It was double the price of the dog.
In line with expectation though.
In line with expectation and did.
I see what you mean.
I'm not going to say, I'm not going to, I'm not going to just sit here and go on a rant of what was better and why. The drone was better, a lot easier. I can see where the drone would be tougher at some points, early season canopy cover. You go out and you're looking for a deer in a field that there could be 100 deer in. But with what I saw, knowing, hey, this deer ran this way, I got it on video. Here's what to expect. This is where the deer ran. He's going to be possibly somewhere around here. Drone. drone all day if you have the financials to do it.
Even if you don't, you can always get a loan.
Depending on
$1 million.
how big the deer is too. The thing about the dogs when we shot paddles is we may have jumped that deer not knowing.
So this was the same stand that you shot paddles, correct?
No,
No?
this is not. Nope.
Was it the same property?
Yes.
Were you looking for paddles deadhead while you were trampling through out there?
No. That was that's for after season.
That's a kill tree, basically. So you weren't going to encroach on it or anything? Or is
No,
it
I mean that's just
too far
I'm not
apart?
even worried about paddle. When I shoot another deer, I didn't even think of my
Mhm.
priority.
Completely
is deer.
separate area too.
Yeah,
Right, but
completely separate area.
okay.
No, that's paddles is done. He's been done since he's dead. I mean, it's safe to say that he's dead.
Yeah. I think we're going to find him
He
springtime.
hasn't been on camera or anything like that, but that's for after season. I'm not worried about him because he's been dead since October 2nd.
Well, ain't what you want, but just to kind of wrap up your end of the story, or I guess your end of the weekend, what is like the biggest thing you would take back, or I guess what I'm trying to say is what's the biggest things you've learned just from that hunt, if any? There don't have to be any like major life changing.
I would say, like I should have read the room a little more of like he's comfortable, but his head's down. Here's the thing: head up, head down. 1 inch could have been the difference of him running 10 yards and dying to him not running any, and surviving. There's so many things. So if I can, his head's up. Possibly, yes, I will aim an inch or two lower. My biggest fear is I'll never put it on a deer stomach unless they're at 25 yards. I'm not going to put it on a deer stomach. It's not. I'm too afraid of dropping my bow. I'm too conservative for that. I will aim an inch or two lower next time. I wasn't center mass, but I'm not going to aim on the deer's belly. it's not going to happen for me because my luck, the deer's going to jump. My luck. So
that's a good point though, because people think that I think the term low is not the same for every person. I don't think that everyone views that as the same thing, because when I say low, people are like, oh, you're going to put it on the white of their belly. No, that's not what I mean. When I say low, I mean like thirds. Top of the back is a third, middle of the body is a third, or a little higher than that is third. And then a third is like a third of the way up, which is probably 3 to 4 inches above the bottom of them. I think when you say low, people are like, oh, you're going to try to shoot him in the armpit. It's like, no, I'm trying to shoot him literally on the heart. Like that's it. Because even if you shoot lower than that, let's say you shoot 2 inches lower than that, you run into a situation like Mason had this year, where he hits it literally as low as you can hit them, but he hits a deer in the heart and shoots right to the sucker's heart. So that's what I mean when I say low.
But mentally, I think that's something you can only like get a good grip on by just shooting deer, like whether that be doe, bucks, whatever it is, because I don't know if Payton, I feel like you and I are pretty similar on like, when I say aim center mass, I just mean like not hold where Christian holds, like
just where you want to hit him.
Right. Exactly.
Where you want to hit him. Yeah.
And so me, I always like, if I picture a deer, like I'm drawn back and I got a deer in my sight housing and I'm putting the pin right where I want it. If I try to just like in my mind go a little bit further down, it's like I'm sinning. You know what I mean? Like it feels like that.
Yeah. I completely understand.
I feel like if someone were to try to learn to like aim for that lower 1/3 or however you worded it, then I feel like someone needs to first practice that on like doe. And not saying they're not more valuable, but I'm just saying, but a doe of a lifetime and a buck of a lifetime, 2 completely different things. But yeah, that's just what I would have to do, is just like get comfortable doing that, because I just feel like I would just constantly just fight to just put it right where I wanted it instead of just aiming a little bit lower.
What gets in my head is, let's say we go out and shoot and we're off. Where are you going to shoot? Where are we all going to shoot? Tendency is to shoot what?
High.
Look, majority of the people that I shoot with, they're, oh man, I dropped my bow. drop my bow. Like if you go out and shoot and you mess up shooting at your target, you're gonna shoot low.
But where is
the deer is going to go low? But I want my arrow to go where I'm aiming. I don't want to ever shoot. I'm not going to shoot low and be like, oh, the deer would have ducked.
I agree, but they okay. If you look at 100 shots, what I was saying is it's not a question of how much they're going to move down. It's not a question of if they're going to move down. It's a question of how much. So me and Jake Ayers were talking about this the other day. I think one of the reasons that people don't aim low is because, just like you just said, Jake, they don't shoot enough does to see it and have the confidence in it. I used to like literally be like, I want to hit right there. And so I'm going to do it. And then I've had situations literally just like what Carol was saying. But when I started to shoot them low, like does like that, I had to see it 4, 5, 6, 7 times to be like, oh, this is perfect. Like, oh, this is great. And I think we get just generally, if people aren't shooting a good amount of does, then you don't get any field reps. It's like your reps are game time. It's like I'm shooting for the championship. I don't get any free throws. Like,
right.
But Jake Ayers made a good point. He said, think about it. He said, if you go out and you shoot $2 a year, every shot is the biggest shot of your year.
100%.
There is no shot that is like, okay, let me work through my process. Let me aim low. Let me try this here. The deer's giving me this
calm
reaction.
Heartbeat. No, I don't think so.
There is none of that. So your reps, every one of your reps is like the Super Bowl on the goal line with 5 seconds left. And I don't think that produces the best reps. Like you just don't get any reps that aren't like here, 10 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just think you're right. That is how you practice. And I think people need more of those reps. I need more of them. I only got to shoot 2 does this year. I'd love to shoot 6.
Yeah,
I'd love to shoot 6.
And to take it one step further, it's like, yeah, it's those reps on like the game time, like between a buck and a doe and like where you want to aim and all that stuff. It's completely different when, also again, shooting from an elevated position, like out of a saddle or a climber or a tree stand or whatever. Completely different thing than shooting one on the ground or shooting a target on the ground. I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's completely different. And I mean, I'll put it this way. The issue for us is we don't have an abundance of places to hunt that if you shoot a doe, it's not going to ruin your chances of shooting a buck. So that kind of discourages people to shoot does.
Yeah.
Like if we go in opening day, we're like, let's shoot 2 does. It's like, well, there could have been a buck. So why would you do that? But if I had 5, 6, 7, 8 spots and it's like, oh, this spot, no bucks coming in. I'm going to go shoot a doe over there. Or this spot, I'm going to go over here and shoot a doe. Every situation is different. But when we're on public, like if a doe walks by, I'll freaking smack it, but
yeah,
those are like,
you might give it 5 seconds to like, anything behind her? No.
She moved quick.
You're dead.
Yeah. But those situations, I really feel like those are your chances to get reps. But it's so hard to get reps. And if you wait till December to get those reps, the deer are switched on. Like they're already like, they're ready. So, I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22. It's like you want to shoot a buck, but you want to get reps, but you don't have a spot to get reps. But
and that was what I was going to talk about earlier too, is, we were talking about going down to the lease to shoot doe. And it's like, the biggest thing is, hey, I'll be the first one to say it. Dude, it costs me $250 every time I go there and back in gas. That's the biggest thing, is that's the spot where I'm like, I can go and I can kill a doe, but I'm spending minimal $250 to get there and back in gas. Then, that's not including food and all that. The biggest thing is if I shoot a doe, I'm stomping through there. My hunt for that weekend is now over, possibly for the next week or 2. And we are very limited on the correct wind too. So it's like, pick your poison, pick your poison.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is. It's a tough equation to figure out, but regardless, I think finding a place to where you can get some does. Like for me, this last weekend, I didn't go to our lease and shoot does. Jake's like, hey, I got a field. You want to shoot some does? I'm like, it's not my field. Absolutely. Like, do you got any more? I mean,
you clean.
yeah. Yeah. But those situations, it's like, find you a buddy, find you a place that has, and that's easier said than done, but find somebody that has some does or a spot that you don't like to hunt or does not have good bucks and go smack some does. I think that will help on the aiming aspect of it. Because if you never shot one low before and you're like, I'll just trust God on this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of your little weekend, how'd that play out? Now, granted, I know it's just a doe hunt, but
yeah. So me and Jake went out and we went to. It was pretty hot. Like when we looked for Carol's buck, it was really cold that morning, but it got up to like 66 that day. So me and Jake were like, let's go out and just sit and see if we can shoot a couple does. So we went out and had a doe come in pretty much immediately, like literally probably 20 minutes after we were sitting there, and had a doe come out. This is a Sunday evening after Carol had left. And I'm like, okay, this is easy. Like, let's start stacking them up. And I draw back on this sucker. And I'm like, Jake, the feeder's 20 yards, right? And he's like, yeah, that's 20. I'm like, awesome. Because we had been there like 20 minutes. We were still talking as the deer's coming in. Like, I don't even have my arrow in my bow.
You don't even have to explain just because, you said feeder, and I was like, okay, he's basically shooting a high fence. So
100%.
Continue.
Yeah. So I get in a full draw on this doe. And I'm like, all right, she's done. I go, ooh. And I mean, cut the hair on her bottom of her belly. I was like, what?
Oh, really?
Cut the hair on the bottom of her belly. I was like, what happened there? And she runs out and blows, and like, she's an idiot. So she starts to come right back in.
Is that a situation of you aiming too low, you think?
No, she would. No, I'm going to finish. I have an explanation, but
I've always been premature about things, but yeah,
that was my thought. That was my first thought was like, okay, I probably held it too low.
Yeah.
I wasn't aiming that low though. I was like that much higher than the belly, like 4 or 5 inches. So she comes back, and then by that time the feeder goes off, like when she's standing like 10 feet away from her, and it like sprays her, and she's like, and runs away. So I'm like, well, that sucks. What happened? And I was like, let me just see, just for craps and giggles. I grabbed my rangefinder, I hit it. It's like 25. I'm like, okay. My sight was on 19. Yeah. So
dude,
shot randomly.
I will say though, the thing about that is crazy is, Jake, we realized when we went to go hunt public land, and I was telling you that because we all shoot single pin or single dial, right? Jake, do you?
I mean, mine's 3-pin, but my bottom pin is adjustable.
Okay,
yeah.
I was gonna say, dude, every 2 yards on your pin makes a difference. At least for me, because I don't shoot.
Yeah.
I don't shoot. I only shoot 67 pounds, 28-inch struggling. So I'm not shooting
67.
Did you get a set of panties with that bow when you bought it?
Well, I can't pull back 70 all day to practice. I can pull back Jake's Matthews with ease on 74, but I struggled.
Yeah, 74.
I struggled to pull my prime back, at the bow shop several times in a row on 70. I don't understand that.
I mean, Matthews is better, but yeah, continue.
I guess some bows that I need to get me a Matthews, because if you miss, you just miss. I need to get into that. If I'm going to miss, I'm just going to miss.
By like 13 yards, absolutely.
If I'm going to miss, if I'm going to take a bad shot, I just want to miss and say, thank you, God. I did not do that again. But
well, that heavy arrow thing it is real. Now, granted, I'm shooting 50, 60 grain. Yeah, 55 grains heavier than I was last year. And then last year's when I shot over the back of that one down there on our public piece, and I was aiming for 20. No, I was aiming for 35, and the deer was only at 25. And I know some people are, new listeners are going to be like, how do you misjudge that, like by the eye even? And well, it was a little, it was on an incline or a decline, kind of leading down this ridge, and so he was quite a bit further down than me, but I just trusted my rangefinder. And again, it was one of those things where what we were talking about earlier, I seen a buck and I couldn't even keep my hand still enough to range the deer. And so just that, being off 10 yards, I guess. But I don't think I would have hit the deer regardless. But yeah, the heavier arrow does make a big difference.
It's a big difference on a scroll reel. It is a huge difference.
Well, and you got to be accurate with your range. That's one thing I learned this weekend too. Like you really need to be. If you're ranging the deer and the deer takes 4 more steps, it's like, no, you probably need to range that.
Yeah,
again,
that's what bugs me though. That's what bugs me because I mean, Mason was talking about how the buck he shot down there on on public how he didn't even range the deer, and that just drives me up the wall. And good, good on you if you can do it, but I don't know. I just have a fear of like, if I range, I'm like, I don't know if it's perfect. And so if I don't know if it's perfect when I draw back, I'm like, well, I don't have confidence in this shot, basically is what I'm saying. And so like, I feel like if you don't do that, then all things go out the, basically go to crap. Oh, but that's most of my problems is just ranging the deer, because I mean, granted, I have glasses, and so it's kind of hard to like get in there and range it. And plus, when you're already shaky, it's just I missed a few deer, or at least a few opportunities just trying to range a deer. But when I shot my buck this year, I didn't even range it, and I was fine because I was like, oh, that thing's 20, 25 yards at most. And so I think there's times you can, but anything over, like, honestly, over 20 yards, I'm kind of skeptical of like just eyeing it.
Yeah, I mean, that I was 6 yards off at 25 yards, so that's like 30% off.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was not an insignificant 6 yards when you're only at 20 something yards. It's not that far off, or it's pretty far off. But yeah, that was the only deer that we had within range besides a forky that night. So I decided to go back out the next morning, and it was during special doe day. So I brought my AR, and Jake was like, he had a spot, and he's like, okay, there's like 8 does that come into the spot. He said, go shoot some does. And I was like, don't say that if you don't really mean it, because I have 6 doe tags. It's the antlers day, so you get 2 extra on top of your regular.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, you do. So I go out there, and I'm like, all right, my plan is to bring my AR and shoot 2 with my AR, and then see what I can do with my bow. So I bring my AR, it's 223, and I mean, I don't hunt a ton with my rifle. I just don't like the explosion of rifle. I don't enjoy shooting them, which is probably the reason that I don't hunt with them very much. I actually would like to hunt with them more. I just don't enjoy the action of that kind of stuff. So I had 8. Jake texted me at like 7:30, and I'm up in this field.
To be fair, you're probably the most scope-eyed person I've ever met in my life when it comes to like rifle hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've always shot very cheap optics and very cheap guns. And so I don't know if you ever bought one out of the case at Walmart but when the scope comes on it, the eye relief on it, you got to look at it like this.
Basically in your eye.
Yeah. Like you're like, okay, I can see it. Yeah. That's what it's like. The eye relief. And that's literally what it's like.
I got to tell this story. So this one time, this was when, heck, it might've been before high school. Even I'm not sure.
In high school, probably.
Was it maybe 16, 17 years old?
Yeah.
Well, I was hunting back behind my mom's house, which I could walk to, and then Christian was hunting on my mom's neighbor's property, and we were, I don't know, probably in total though 800, 900 yards away from each other, because you were hunting that back meadow, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And and so I could hear him shoot, and so he ended up getting a doe that day. And by the time we meet at my mom's house, he comes and picks me up, and we drive back around to go get his doe, which he's already drugged to like this tree line or whatever. There was a coyote sitting there eating this doe. And like we pull up probably 20 yards from the doe, and we're just like, okay, the thing's going to run off here in a second. And he's still there just like tearing at it. So Christian gets out. I don't know if you scope-eyed yourself on the doe as well. I think
no, I had scope-eyed myself a couple weeks earlier shooting that 8-point I shot off my Uncle John's.
That's right. So he already had like a previous cut on his eye.
It was like scabbed over.
And what made it even funnier is like a few days later, he was going to go to like his girlfriend's at the time, like Thanksgiving.
It was Lauren's Thanksgiving, yeah,
with all of her family. And so he ends up shooting this doe with a rifle somehow. Well, he gets out because I didn't bring my rifle. I was like, why do I need my rifle? We picked him. He picked me up in his truck. Well, he gets out and grabs his rifle and points at this coyote. Boom! Coyote doesn't do anything. Like, doesn't drop, and I'm expecting it to fold. I look at him. His eye is like leaking. And then since the coyote was still there, he racked it again. Boom! Didn't hit it. This is 20 yards. And I'm like, how the heck did you
kill this doe. And again, it scope eyed him again. And so at this point, he has like a gash in his forehead, and it's just like coming down his nose. Well, long story short, the coyote runs off, and we get the deer, and the deer's hide is just kind of barely torn into, like nothing, no big damage happened within that 30 minutes. But I don't know. That's a good story that needs to be remembered.
That's a great story because it's a great example of why I don't like guns. That people think that I like everyone I hang out with or go to like at the gym. They're like, "Oh, you don't like the rifle hunt?" I'm like, "No, I do. Like I enjoy rifle hunting. I did at one time. I don't bow hunt, because I'm snobbish about rifles. It's just I literally do not enjoy shooting them.
I'm higher class.
No, I just don't enjoy shooting them for that reason. Ultra. No, so I bring my AR and I bring my bow, and I get up in the stand, and these 8 does come in at like 7:30, and I'm like, "You guys are done. I'm gonna shoot 2 with my gun, and then I'm gonna grab my bow, and when they're blowing, I'm gonna shoot a couple more." So they come in, and there's one that's eyeing me the whole way in. Like, you know how when they're like walking and looking at you? One of those. She's doing that. I'm like, "You're the one." And so I have a shot at one that's way closer, like 5 yards closer. And I'm like, "No, I'll wait till the fawn gets behind this one." So
Not a boy.
So I can shoot the one I know is being like that. And so I get on her and I take it off safety, and I'm squeezing, click, and all of them. I'm like, "Oh no."
How far away are they?
They're like 20.
Oh, no.
20. And so I don't know how I managed to do it, but I cock the gun and the shell doesn't come out. And I'm like, "What's going on?" Like in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh, I didn't load a shell. I'm an idiot." So I take the clip out and I look. I'm like, "All right, there's still bullets." I stick the bullets in again and I go to load it and it won't go in the barrel. And I'm like, "What is going on?" So they're all at 20, and I take the clip out again and I hold the gun up a little bit. They're still all at 20. And I look down the barrel and there's a bullet in there and it won't come out. I'm like, "No." So I don't have my knife. I grab my other bullet out of my pocket, and I'm sitting there with my gun in the air, like sticking a bullet in the barrel, trying to get the other bullet out. And I finally get it out, and they're like, kind of, they're still all there. And I've managed to get it cocked again. And when you hit the, there's a button that pushes the bolt carrier group forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hit that, and it's like cling, and they're like, they're all at 20, like 8 of them.
I've heard this shot, but I've heard that sound before.
Yeah. So I get on him this time, and I'm like, "Yeah, I got you this time." And I look, there's a bullet, there's a firing pin mark in my first bullet. So I'm like, that's not a good sign. So I load another one up, and they're at 20 again. And I'm like, cling. I'm like, at this point, I'm starting to get pretty frustrated. They scatter at that point. They're like, and they all run off. And I'm like, dang it. So then they're out at like 40 or 50. And so I'm like, well, I can easily reload now. Like, it's fine. So I pull it out. I have a second set of ammo in my other pocket, like a nicer pair of ammo. So I grab that and I put 4 of those in the clip, put it in again, rack it again. And when one's at 40, I'm thinking, this is your time. You're done.
Right.
Cling! And so at this point, I'm about to throw my AR out of the tree.
Do you have the second angle GoPro looking at you?
No, huh?
No. Are you saying that? Are you just saying that?
No, I really don't. Because
I wish you did, because I know your ass went.
No, I didn't. That's funny. I kind of wish I did have that. So I took the gun.
I would have.
I don't have a strap on the gun, and so I can't. The only reason I'm not using my bow initially is because I don't have a strap on the gun, so I can't put it on the hook, and there's nowhere to put the gun. So I take the gun and I put it between my feet.
I would have just threw it at that point and be like, pissed
Yeah,
I was thinking
I'd be like, it ain't gonna go off anyway. It's not,
Yeah.
or throwing that out the tree.
So I set it between my feet, like behind me in the platform, and I just grabbed my bow and I'm like, let a deep breath out. And these does come back again. Like, they all come back again. And there's one that looks at me. There's always one. 7 of them or 8 of them are sitting there. One of them has me dead to rights. Dead at 20. She's just staring at me. And I'm
you
thinking,
say it's you or nothing.
Yes. And I'm thinking, different doe at the time. So I'm thinking, this one is you. I've got one with your name on it. Stand right there, and I got you. So she's sitting there, and she's about to stomp at me. And here comes another one out of the woods, just right in front of her. And I said, I didn't make this decision. She walked in front of her. So as the one behind her clears, I put it right on her shoulder. And I mean, you saw the story on where it hit her. It was about as pretty as it gets as far as shot placement. Right through both shoulders. She runs immediately, is ditch digging, like eating dirt. And she makes it 40, falls over, flops. I'm like, awesome. So all the other does start blowing at her. At this point, I'm thinking, do I try to get my rifle out again and see if I can plank another one? But I didn't. They kind of scatter. Some went to the north, some came back to the south. And this is a pretty like narrow winter wheat field. And so they were coming back by to go back to the bedding. And there's another one standing out there at 37, blowing at the one that I'd shot. And she comes back by, shot her at 37, hit her kind of higher in the shoulder and dropped her, shot her again. And then a third one
higher in the shoulder, like that one you shot at Jesse's, like
no,
about right there.
No. Well, oh, you mean the 8-point that I shot at Jesse's?
Yeah, the one that like just dropped.
Maybe a little bit lower than that, but yes, okay. in that area, yeah, somewhere in there.
Because at first, that's where I thought Payton hit his buck from this last weekend, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's weird. It didn't drop, but I don't know."
Mm-hmm. No, it was a little bit lower than that. I don't know. Sometimes you hit them in some spots and they just drop, like in the shoulder or stuff. They just drop. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, the head. I don't know why.
Yeah. So I hit that one at 37. A third one, the big mature nanny, the first time that I told you that I plinked and she was trying to blow at me, she starts to come back and there's one limb in between me and her. I'm like, take one more step and I'm going to like light this one up too. And she turns around and blows and runs off. So I got 2. So on the weekend, I missed one and then my gun misfired 3 times and I shot 2. So I was 2 for 6. And when you think about it, that's not bad. That's 33% from the field.
That's not bad, and that's also why gun hunting is too easy, right?
That's what I was telling Jake. I said,
karma's going to come back and bite every single one of us. I can promise you that. Like the one time we're going to use a crossbow or something like that, there's going to be a 170, and then the limbs are just going to snap on us and be like, "Not today." Remember that time?
It makes me mad because I shot the gun the weekend before at the range like 20 times, and then I get it out in the cold and it like plinks 3 times. Plink, plink, plink.
It could have been too because you're trying to be quiet on those guns, dude. Just like a shotgun, you can't like push that lever forward and hold it. You're like, oh, we're jumping up on a pond. You know, you can't push that lever and try to hold it and it goes softly. You got to hit that button and let that some freaking gun close.
And I did on the last couple times because I was just thinking, I don't care. I'll scare them off, but this gun's gonna go off, and so I hit that bolt carrier
as they're running.
Yeah.
So basically, you're not going to use that gun in a home defense unless your temperature's set up to above 70 or what?
No, I will.
Robert breaks in. You're like, hold on.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
I'm gonna grab the end of the barrel.
The receiver of it.
I'm gonna grab the end of the barrel,
baby,
and I'm gonna beat him to death with it as a club. That's my only shot. I'm about to call Radical Firearms and be like, dude, this thing didn't go off 3 times. What the hell's wrong with it?
Honestly, what I would do is I would keep that little ballistia crossbow in your nightstand. And dude, if I was a robber and I seen someone with a handheld, like a handgun crossbow, I would be psycho. Like, dude, here's my money.
Yeah, that little crossbow is a heck of a home defense. But no, what's funny is when I got the box of the ballistic crossbow, we have this little pistol one that we're going to use for bow fishing and stuff. It says self-defense on the box.
No, it does not.
It does. I'm sitting there thinking, who thought this was a good idea? Like a guy walks in, you shoot him with a bolt that's like the size of a pencil, and he's like, ah!
To be fair, a toddler could like pull that what do you call that?
I don't know what it's called, a drawstring.
Yeah. A toddler can pull that back. So like it would be easy to like load it probably. But the thing is, like, imagine if like your bow fishing reel was hooked up and like you stuck a dude like a robber with that bow fishing thing. You're like, hold on a second, sir. We're calling the cops on you, mister.
Back here.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It was a good weekend. It was a high and a low weekend.
Can y'all hear this right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
Okay. It's a high and a low weekend, but on the bright side, Carroll's Buck's showing back up again. So I really do think that he'll get a opportunity at him again.
Are you going to
I
try to take vengeance on him, Carroll?
Won't be until after Christmas. I'm
Well,
booked up
yeah,
till
it's
after
given.
Christmas.
Well, I have confidence in you. I mean, I know you said at the beginning of the year just wasn't your year after the paddle situation, and then I was feeling really bad for you after you sent me the footage of that one. I was like, damn, like maybe he's right. Like at first I just thought you were being, like down in the dumps about it, but I was like, maybe he knows something we don't know. I don't know, but
Dude, before paddles, when I got my house got broken into, I was like, we're gonna do this year.
Didn't you say they took your Seika beanie and your gloves?
Yeah, they got me. They could have got me a lot worse, but they hit me where it hurt.
I think this last weekend
is what I was most pissed off about because I'm out there windy. I'm like, I'm freaking cold, dude. Of course they stole they left the camera so I can record and all that, have to deal with that. But by God, they stole everything to keep me warm. So that's awesome.
They were stealing just what would inconvenience you the most. They're like, we don't really need a camera. Yeah. Let's grab this gator over here.
Get his gloves.
Yeah, leave the release. He sucks anyways. Leave the release. Take the release out of the bag. Grab a stick so he can't climb a tree. He's got
leave the platform.
He can't climb the tree. Grab the sticks.
They stole your sticks. I can't believe that.
Yeah. Took the platform off, but they stole the sticks.
Those guys are like, what even is this?
They didn't know what the platform was.
Yeah.
Is this a metal seat?
Oh, yeah. No, ditch it. It's heavy. It's heavy.
Can you imagine guys running with your hawk sticks through the neighborhood?
I bet their first thing is like, this son of a gun walks with a 50-pound bag in the woods to go hunt. He's out of his mind.
Oh,
they respected you and brought all your stuff back.
They probably couldn't have formulated that sentence. They're just like, I don't know. We take it to the pawn shop. And I hate
go into the pawn shop and find your hawk sticks for $20.
Yeah, probably, dude. Piss me off. Oh, piss me off because I'm like, well, now I can't even climb a tree. So
you just awesome. Bear hug that sucker up it. You know what I mean? How devoted are you, Carroll?
How devoted, as in like
to go kill that deer right now, or like after Christmas, after the holidays?
I mean, after Christmas, I'm going to get out there as much as I can. That's one of those things that, hey, December 26th, I'm going to try to go that week, but if not, it'll have to wait to that weekend. I mean, it's at the holiday season time now to where I'm like, I've had plenty of time to hunt and get the job done, but now other stuff is coming up. So I just don't have the time.
No, I hear you. I think you need to wait till January because I don't think any of us here have killed like a January buck, and I think you need to.
We're limited on time, man. I think he's with that whatever he's got, and he's losing weight rapidly. I need to get out there and get it done ASAP. So,
yeah, you can see his ribs now, and as you saw the first video, there were no ribs to be seen.
Well, keep that corn feeder full. He'll be coming.
He's gonna be coming.
Yeah. All right, boys. What else? What else you got? Any more brain busters, Dave?
I think that wraps it up.
What about you? I got one last question for you. What's your plan for the rest of the year?
Well, I'm about like you on the family situation. I mean, if you're going to bring up my childhood trauma, my parents are divorced, and so now we have to go to at least 3 or 4 Thanksgivings, Christmases, exactly. But we got to run all over the place. But yeah, Carol, thanks for bringing that up. That was a hard time in my life.
Good. Hey, I'd do it again. Great. Make sure to bring it up next podcast too.
Yeah.
It stinks because we sit here and talk about, we got till January 15th, but you do, but you don't. So.
Yeah, I think that too. And I'm like, it's almost 2024. Like that's how much time's like flying by. I'm like, I thought it was just now 2023, but here we are.
The good thing is here in 10 days, new year, new me. So.
But guess what? You know what doesn't change?
What?
Out on a limb discount code. Like they still sell great products. And hello, just in time, maybe a little late for Christmas after hearing this, but you can save, what is it, 10 or 15%? It's 10%.
You're nailing this.
Well, I tried, and then 10%. I was like, now I really got to sell some stuff, but yet I don't know.
Yeah, it's
It ain't too late to
HAPA10.
Christmas shop. I did my Christmas shopping today, and I still got more to do tomorrow. Express shipping.
But yeah.
Have you seen that Facebook post that said, "Guys, it's about time to start thinking about Christmas shopping. Don't go yet, but start thinking about it." It was like yesterday. That was
That's
a good
literally
one.
me right now. But
Yeah. If you guys do need a last minute holiday gift that won't arrive before the 25th, out on a limb, mfg.com. You can use code HNTA10 for 10% off, and then the same. At Exodus Outdoor Gear, we get a little bit better discount. We get 15% off with code HA15 if you want to get a trail camera. And Exodus got some exciting stuff coming up.
it ain't just trail cameras either. It's arrows and everything.
Arrows, apparel, solar panels, memory cards, all that good stuff. So
yeah, guys, trail cameras that work, from June to December so far. So
dude, we have
trail cameras that work and stay working.
We have a camera that is running on batteries, 8 batteries. That didn't have 16, has 8 batteries, and it's still like full. And we've had it out on video mode all year, like 6 months.
So does it get very much action?
During not as much anymore, but like
right, but that's kind of late season stuff. But
yeah, during the season it was getting a lot. Like
really
during the peak of the season, there was a lot of videos coming through in that thing. So I'm impressed with that. But
mine's full, but I've probably taken 4 buck pictures this whole time. So
you're like, the battery life on these things are insane,
impeccable.
My camera lasted 2 years on battery.
It really will.
That's awesome. Well, this will be the last podcast we do before Christmas, so I hope everybody has a great Christmas Eve. Spend some time with their family.
All right, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
That made me want to break both my legs. Listen, you said that. I hope you guys have a great Christmas, and I hope everybody gets that new bow or that $1,200 hat that you've been looking for. So,
and remember, it is the reason for the season, and just know that Jesus loves you.
That's right, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.